My spouse was caring for our neighbor's large canine while they were gone. The dog bumped into her and did something she enjoyed and couldn't say no to. It was a typical Thursday night, one of those evenings where life seems to pause, offering a moment of peace in the usual busyness. I had just returned from my job, feeling very tired. Each step a struggle. But the atmosphere in our home felt unusual, full of a strange, strong energy I couldn't identify. I located my wife in the kitchen. She was facing away from me, leaning down to get something from the oven. The scene was ordinary, yet oddly alluring. Her dress lifted up a bit, showing a little skin. I watched her silently as she stood back up, a tiny drop of sweat rolling down her neck. "Hi," I greeted, trying to act normal and ignore the tension in my chest, a confusing blend of inquisitiveness and worry growing inside me. She spun around, a surprised expression on her face that quickly changed to a smile that didn't seem genuine. "Oh, you're back early," she responded, her tone suggesting something unsaid, something concealed. "Yeah, finished work a little early. Figured I'd surprise you," I explained, approaching her and kissing her cheek. I tried to sense normalcy in our contact, but it felt different, heavy with an unspoken meaning I couldn't grasp. We ate dinner, the sound of silverware on dishes, the only noise for a time. I kept looking at her, attempting to understand the change in her behavior. Had I made a mistake? Was it a work issue? No, it was something else, a secret. Suddenly, she blurted out, "There's something I need to tell you." My heart pounded, fear rising. What was it? I froze, fork in the air. The dog. When I was watching him, something happened. Her words hung heavy, suffocating me. My stomach churned, and I felt cold sweat. "What could a dog do to cause such a confession?" she whispered. "He was so big. He held me down. I couldn't move. I couldn't fight." My mind raced. What was she saying? Was it what I thought? The images in my head were disgusting and strangely exciting, a confusing mix. I tried to push him off, but there was something about it. Something wild, primal. Her voice faded, her ashamed eyes avoiding mine. I was speechless. Was this betrayal? Not by another person, but something animalistic, disturbing. Did you like it?" The question slipped out, my voice strange and distant. Her pause answered it. I felt anger, confusion, and a weird curiosity. How could she? But part of me wanted to know, to explore the dark parts of her mind where this happened. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the soft panting of the dog, which now lay at her feet, its tail thumping against the floor, oblivious to the storm it had unleashed in our lives. I stared at her, this woman I thought I knew, and realized there were layers to her, depths I had never explored, or perhaps dared to acknowledge. And in that moment, the line between right and wrong blurred, leaving me with more questions than answers. What did this mean for us? Could I ever look at her the same way again? And more disturbingly, why did part of me find this revelation strangely compelling? The evening stretched into night, the tension growing, each tick of the clock echoing the pulse of my heart, the rhythm of an unraveling life. As the darkness outside deepened, I felt an abyss opening within me. Each second dragged on with the weight of a lifetime. The usual comforts of our home now felt like a stage set for a tragedy. So I finally broke the silence, my voice a mere whisper, yet it carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken accusations. How long has this been going on? Her eyes, those windows to her soul that once reflected only love and laughter, now seemed clouded with guilt and something else, defiance. She took a deep breath, her chest rising, in a way that under different circumstances would have stirred me. But now it only fueled my sense of betrayal since last month. She admitted, her voice barely above a whisper, yet each word sliced through the air like a knife. It started when I was walking Max alone. There was this connection with a dog. The abs, it would have been laughable if it wasn't so devastating here. I was imagining her with another man, another woman. Even but a dog, my mind reeled, trying to grasp the implications. How I managed to choke out, not wanting the details yet, morbidly needing them, like picking at a scab. It was after the accident, when I had to take him to the vet. He was so hurt, so vulnerable, and in those moments of care, something shifted. I started seeing him differently. The betrayal wasn't just in the act. It was in the revelation that this was not just about sex. It was an emotional affair, or as close as one could get under these bizarre circumstances. I looked at Max now, dozing off at her feet, blissfully unaware of the turmoil he had part in creating. His innocence made the whole scenario even more surreal. Did you ever think about us, about what this would do to us? My voice cracked, betraying the storm within. I did, she said, and there was that look again, a mix of sorrow and something darker. But sometimes we can't control what we feel or whom we feel, for the room felt like it was closing in, the walls whispering secrets. I was not meant to hear. Betrayal was always painted as an affair, a secret lover. But this was a twisted narrative I could never have anticipated. And Max, I couldn't even say his name without a twinge of bitterness. What about him now? Her gaze dropped to the dog, and her face softened, a stark contrast to the tension between us. I'm not sure it's complicated. Complicated, that word didn't even begin to cover it. My mind raced with scenarios, none of them comforting. The life we had built together seemed to crumble before my eyes, not from the usual cracks of infidelity, but from something so unexpected, so utterly bewildering. The silence turned, but this time it was different. It was not just the absence of sound, but the presence of an unspoken end, the quiet before the storm of revelations. I stood up, feeling the need to move, to break free from this suffocating revelation. My steps felt heavy. Each one a decision made, a boundary across the room seemed to shrink as I paced my thoughts, a whirlwind of disbelief and pain. Will you stop this? I asked, hoping against hope for an answer that might salvage some part of our reality. She didn't answer immediately, and in that pause my heart sank further when she finally spoke. Her voice was firm. I need time to understand, to decide. Time. That's what she needed while my world was crumbling. The room spun slightly as I tried to process her words, the implications of her needing time, the very essence of what that meant for us. The clocks ticking seemed to mock me, marking each passing second of this surreal nightmare. How could one reconcile with it? Such a betrayal. Was there even a path back from here? In that moment, I felt an overwhelming need for air, for space to think, to breathe without the weight of her confession pressing down on me. I walked to the door, my hand on the knob, hesitating. Did I want to leave? Was this the end, or just a bizarre intermission in our life together? The door opened with a creak, and as I stepped out into the cool night, I left behind not just the warmth of our home, but the comfort of what I thought was our shared reality. The night was silent, except for the distant howl of a dog, a poignant reminder of the night's revelations echoing through the darkness, a call to an uncertain future. The cool air hit my face, a sharp contrast to the stifling atmosphere inside. As I walked down the street, my mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, each more chaotic than in the last. Was it just time she needed, or was it time away from me? The dog's distant howl seemed to echo my inner turmoil, a lonely cry in the night that felt all too familiar. My feet carried me to the park, the place where we had shared so many laughs, so many dreams. But now every shadow seemed to hold a secret, every bench, a silent witness to a love. Now questioned, I sat down on our favorite bench, the one we always said was ours. It felt different now, colder, as if the very wood resented my presence. I couldn't shake the image of her face when she told me the guilt and the sorrow in her eyes. What did that look mean? Was it regret for what she had done, or for what she was about to do? The betrayal was like a knife, slicing through the trust I had placed in her and us. As I stared at the moon, its serene glow offered no comfort, only a stark reminder of the light that had left my life. The bench creaked under me, and for a moment I imagined it was her voice telling me something I wasn't ready to hear. Why, I whispered into the night. Why, if you loved me, did you do this? The silence was my only answer, and the howl of the dog once more, as if it too was searching for an answer, for a resolution to its own pain. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. This wasn't just about time. It was about truth. Had she ever been truthful with me, or was our relationship built on a foundation of lies? The thought was unbearable. Yet it was all I could think about. Each moment we had shared, every whispered promise, every laugh now felt like a lie. The betrayal wasn't just her act of infidelity. It was the years of deceit that had led up to this moment. My heart raced with a mix of anger and sorrow. I wanted to confront her, to demand answers, but the fear of what I might hear held me back. What if she confirmed my worst fears? What if she said she never loved me? Could I handle that truth? The park was empty, save for the occasional rustle of leaves or the distant bark of a dog, perhaps the same one whose howl had marked the night's beginning. It was almost poetic, the way the dog's the night's beginning. It was almost poetic, the way the dog's cry seemed to echo my own internal howling, a sound of pain, confusion, and an uncertain future. I stood up, feeling the cold seep into my bones, matching the chill. And my heart, I knew I had to go back, not for answers, but because part of me still hoped for a miracle, for her to explain. It was all a terrible mistake, but deep down I knew that hope was as fleeting as the autumn leaves that fell around me. The path back home was long, each step heavy with the weight of betrayal. As I neared our house, the lights were still on, the lawn shadows that seemed to stretch out, reaching for me, pulling me back into the nightmare. I paused at the doorstep, my hand hovering over the doorknob. Could I face her? Could I listen to whatever explanation she might offer? The door loomed large, an entrance, not just to our home, but to a confrontation I wasn't sure I was prepared for. With a deep breath, I turned the knob, stepping back into a life I no longer recognized, ready to face the truth, whatever it might be. As I stepped inside, the warmth of the house felt like an alien. Embraced the familiar scent of lavender and vanilla candles filled the air, now tainted with the sour taste of deceit. There she was, her silhouette framed by the soft light of the living room, her eyes wide with a mixture of shock and something else. Was it guilt or fear? "Dad," her voice broke the heavy silence, trembling, as if she could feel the storm brewing within me. Let me explain, but could any explanation mend the shattered trust between us? My heart pounded in my chest, each beat echoing like a drum of war. I walked past, each beat echoing. The plush carpet underfoot, feeling like quicksand threatening to pull me into despair. I stopped in the middle of the room, turning slowly to face her. "Explain," I questioned, my voice a cold whisper. "Can you explain the lipstick on his collar, the text messages, the way you looked at him at the party?" She opened her mouth, but no words came out, her eyes darting away from mine, unable to hold my gaze. My mind raced with images, the memories of our life together, now tainted every touch, every kiss, every whispered "I love you." Did any of it mean anything to her, what we had, Emily? Was it all just a lie? I asked, not expecting an answer yet, yearning for one that would undo the past few hours. The room felt like it was shrinking, the walls closing in, as if to force a confrontation, an exorcism of our demons. She took a step forward, her hand reaching out, but I stepped back, the distance between us now, not just physical, but vast, insurmountable. "I didn't mean for it to happen, Daniel," she finally said, her voice barely a whisper, carrying the weight of 1,000 regrets. It was a moment of weakness. A moment of weakness. The words stung like a betrayal, all over again. How long does it take for a moment to turn into weeks, into months? How much time did we lose to her? Weakness. I moved towards the window, looking out into the night, the darkness reflecting the turmoil inside me. And now I asked, my back still turned to her, not wanting to see the expression that would surely accompany her next words. Her reply was soft, almost inaudible over the sound of my own heartbeat. In the end, the truth always surfaces, leaving us to face the consequences of our choices. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like, and leave a comment.